Good morning, world. This is Edward Bevilacqua. Today is December 10th, 2018, here on a Monday morning in Las Vegas. It's getting kind of chilly. I have my vest on. And today we're going to talk about inside our skull-sized kingdom. So this is week number 2 of our program. Our program is designed to help struggling adults, which means most of people in the world, in the United States, in Las Vegas, but kind of not so much because the economy is doing very well here. But this is people that every day they have to get out there and make it happen. And we don't focus on the people who are barely struggling. Our focus is the people who are severely struggling. They're unemployed, underemployed, drug addiction, alcohol problems, et cetera, didn't graduate from high school. That's who we do. But our materials work for people who are well educated as well. So it's either new stuff or stuff that people have learned. And this is week number 2 in our 4-week cycle. Last week was introduction and orientation. This week is called Inside Our Skull-Sized Kingdom, which is our focus on how the brain works for the purpose of controlling our emotions and understanding other people's emotions. Next week is Outside Our Skull-Sized Kingdom, and then week number 4 is Employment Planning Workshop. So this is week number 2 for class number 1 in Las Vegas at WellCare, so we're very appreciative of that opportunity. And this is week number 2 of class number 2 in Reno. And I don't know, this is year number 6 for Casa Grande and year number 4 for our outside classrooms. So big things happening in the future. We're very proud of our relationships and the direction we're going in the over 1,000 people who've been in our program in the last few years. So inside our skull-sized kingdom, let's just quickly deconstruct on that for a second. So we are designed that everything, that we are the center of our own universe, that everything happens around us, to us, etc. If we want to get to the store, our starting point is where we are right now, and everything else revolves around us. And so we start from that as our skull-sized kingdom, where I am the most important person in the universe. So we are, that's how we think of ourselves, and it's also how we are, I would say, evolved. That's our default setting, is everything revolves around us. So we're not trying to fight that. We're going to assume that's true. And so our focus is what happens inside my skull-sized kingdom? And we break it down into 3 parts. One is just the structure of our brain, and our focus is on neurons, dendrites, synapses, neurotransmitters, that which is kind of known as the connectome, the connection of all of the neurons and the connections of those neurons in our brain. And so it's about 86 billion neurons and about 10,000 connections per neuron. So in our connectome is stored our lived past, our imagined future, our ability to simulate, our imagination, and things like that. Those are things that are stored inside our neurons. And how do we know that? Well, we know if we have a stroke or if we have a traumatic brain injury, those things go away. Therefore, those things must be stored in our neurons. We also know that the brain is plastic and the brain has the ability to learn. And last week we watched Dr. Daniel Amen's TED Talk about how 83,000 brain scans and how the brain can be rehabilitated to a certain extent with a Brain Smart program, which is what we try to implement here. Our program is fundamentally that. So inside our skull-sized kingdom, we have the neurons, the cells that are in our brain, and we rely heavily upon the results of fMRI and SPECT and other type of brain scanning technology, so we know exactly what's happening. Well, maybe not exactly, but we have a good idea of what's happening. We try to follow Dr. Amen's advice of, if you don't look, how do you know? Otherwise, it's just throwing darts in the dark. So we rely upon science and current technology in order to eliminate Clark's fourth law problems, which is, footnote, Clark's fourth law, for every expert, there's an equal and opposite expert. So we try to avoid Clark's fourth law problems in everything we do. We do that by removing the expert from the equation. So for example, if people can see a brain scan, an fMRI, recording of what's happening in the brain, you don't need to be an expert to be able to come to some valid conclusions. Part number one of our skull-sized kingdom is, once again, our connectome. Part number two is neurotransmitters, the chemicals that are released in the synapses on the neurons in our brain. And these neurotransmitters are responsible for our feelings. Our focus is on 7 neurotransmitters, 4 that make us feel happy: endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. Also the stress hormone, cortisol, and then testosterone. And sorry, we had our students are trying to come in as I'm trying to do this. Hold on a second. Let me finish the video. Well, the wonders of modern technology. Okay, so number 2 is neurotransmitters. Part number 3 is our reticular activation system. And in class, that's what we're going to focus on today. So broadly speaking, or not broadly, the reticular activation system is located in our brain stem. It's a bundle of neurons about the size of our little finger that's located in our brain stem, which connects to our spinal cord and our eyes, ears, and our other senses. So our ears don't connect into our brain, they connect to our brain stem. And the reticular activation system acts like a filter for the things that we believe, the things that are important to us. For example, our name. That's why we can be in a crowded room having a conversation over on this side, and somebody over on that side mentions our name, we immediately hear it. We didn't know they were having a conversation. We didn't know anything else about the conversation, but our name was spoken, got our attention. That's the reticular activation system. So what we're going to learn about today in a Tony Robbins short little video, Mark Dawes video on YouTube, and a Blaine Ilkers TED Talk is how the reticular activation system works. And our takeaway is that the things that we believe come to our attention. And then if we apply Jordan Peterson's thing to that, once that comes to our attention, our awareness, that acts as a thing that pulls us to whatever our belief is. So, and it doesn't matter for our reticular activation system whether our belief is positive or negative. So if we have a belief that says, I can't type, or I suck, or something like that, our reticular activation system is going to scan all information that's available to us to support our beliefs. So if we have a belief that we suck at something, our reticular activation system is going to bring to our awareness every time we do something that supports the belief that we suck. So if it's typing, that's the little voice in your head that as you're typing, if you say, I suck, I can't type, that's the little voice in your head that every time you make a mistake says, yep, you can't type, this sucks, it's hard, why am I doing this? All the negative thoughts. On the other hand, we can have a growth mindset and just add the word yet to the end of it. So if you say, I can't type yet, all of a sudden the little voice in your head, instead of saying you suck, it says, hey, you're getting better. You typed an extra word or two before that thing fell off. or before you made a mistake. Good job. So what we want to get this week is the importance of developing positive beliefs. And what we're going to learn today is that our self-image is made up of nothing more than our self-beliefs. And so Mark Dawes is going to say, so why not just be the person you want to be? Instead of being this person who you believe you are today, or focusing on the faults, instead of being that person, why not focus on the person you want to be? And so he'll give an example. You'll hear him give an example of when you were kids, you played cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers and stuff, and you became that person. Jordan Peterson will talk about Piaget, who's watching kids, and when they do games, they become the characters that they are. And I think as adults, we stop doing that and we start believing what other people tell us about ourselves. So what we find out is how the brain works is the reticular activation system of all the information streaming into our brain. It filters out the stuff for what's important to us and brings to our awareness that which is important to us. So if we have negative beliefs, that's what's going to become to our awareness. If we have positive beliefs, those are going to do it. So our takeaway for today is the importance of the reticular activation system and not believing things that are detrimental to our future. And that's a very important tool, and we'll learn techniques about doing that, but it's having a growth mindset. So we'll watch at some other point TED Talks by Carol Dweck. Well, let's just say Carol Dweck about having a growth mindset, and then Grit Duckworth, Angela Duckworth, talking about growth mindset and grit. So, but for our purposes and our students, the number one thing to do today is to stop all negative self-thoughts, all negative self-beliefs, because when you have a negative self-belief, that's what you're always going to be reminded of that. All we need to do is stop doing that. And so I've got students outside waiting to come in. It's a little bit cold. We'll continue this tomorrow with neurotransmitters and Simon Sinek.